Obviously, the way that we are living is working completely against like the way that the Lord designed our bodies. And I do think it's a combination of multiple things. I think it's a combination of now we have multiple generations of women who do not understand how their body works and what it needs. The advent of birth control, I think, has been a massive disservice to women's health. And I think it's actually put women's health back decades because now it's being thrown as your only option and it's a band-aid and it's actually causing more trouble. I think that our modern society and the pace of our modern society and the amount of stress that women are under is causing a lot of imbalance. I think that our modern technology and like the advent of artificial lighting being something that is nonstop. It is constant. People really don't realize the way that your body is designed to function. You're designed to function with signals of light. You have a circadian rhythm. And then you add on top of that, like all the xenoestrogens that we have, all of the toxins in our food and our products. And I'm not someone that really focuses on like everything is toxic. And I know you can find those people in the holistic space. It's just not going to be me because I also need you to like be okay and like live. Like, but it is something,
right?
Yeah, but it is something you have to be aware of, that it's like there's a lot that's working against us. So I think that's one of the most important things for especially Catholic women to understand is that like God isn't just punishing you and he didn't forget about you and he didn't design a really messy and chaotic system. It's actually just that our modern world and man has made a lot of choices that are not good. And so if you understand that, you can be empowered to work against it, but God's not the enemy and your body isn't the enemy here.
All right, welcome to another episode of The Catholic Couple, having fun with faith, family, and friends. I'm your co-host, Bobby Fredrickson, with, as always, my beautiful wife,
Katie Fredrickson.
I'm the convert Catholic, and she's
the cradle Catholic.
And here we are on a very special episode with the Catholic Nutritionist. We have Florencia Moynihan. Hello.
Hello, Bobby, Katie. I love you guys going back and forth like that. That is so cute. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, thank you for taking the time. It's really, it's a busy time. I'm sure you're busy just like we are. And so we appreciate you taking the time.
Is this your busy time of year with New Year's resolutions?
Yes. And post-seek.
Oh,
Yes.
True. Yeah.
And then coming up on Lent. So I'm sure that's just everybody.
Yeah, that's true too.
It's a good time. So we caught you at a perfect time.
This is your tax season. I don't know. Like how accountants are really busy right now.
Yes.
I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, 100%. It's this time of year. And then I think the end of the year that people are like, wait, or right before summer too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Or their wedding. But so Florencia is such a beautiful name, but I see you also go by Flo. So do you want us to refer to you as Flo for the rest of the podcast?
No, my mom will be so happy if you call me Florencia.
Okay. You're so beautiful. What a beautiful name.
I got real blessed with that one for sure.
Yeah. Well, Florencia, then tell us a little bit just about yourself, your background, and what it is that you're currently doing.
Yes. So I am the founder of the Catholic Nutritionist. I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner and a fem instructor. And what we do within this practice is we're a holistic and functional women's practice. Specifically, we serve a lot of Catholic women, 99.99% Catholic women, who really want to restore their body. There's like issues with their hormones, with their gut, with their energy, whatever it may be. And they want to understand the way the Lord made them and bring it back into like freedom without destroying their relationship with food. So really learning how to use food as a gift and as a tool for healing rather than always being something to control.
What made you start this? Like, how did you get involved in this?
So my own issues always. So really like my whole story kind of revolved around my life being painted by these like big 3 issues. I call it like my perfect storm. It's this Bermuda Triangle of really disordered body image and disordered eating from a very, very young age. My first diet was when I was in like the 2nd grade, and like constantly having this awareness of what my body looked like and thinking that it wasn't enough and it always needed to be smaller. And then once I got to middle school, I got my period and it was like the worst thing in the whole world. Like it was a nightmare and I was missing a lot of school. And I was in a lot of pain and I would go to doctor's appointments all throughout middle school, high school, and college being like, what can we do? And it was just like, we'll just get on birth control. That's what you do, or suck it up and just take 6 rounds of ibuprofen 3 days before your period starts, which I was like, none of the above. And thank God my mom was like, absolutely not, get away from her. But I was just like, I guess this is what it is. I have to deal with it. And then on top of that, a lot of gut issues. So like stomach aches every single day of high school, which part of it was gut function, but also part of it was I hated high school and I didn't know that that was the connection. So going also to doctor's appointments there and being told like, well, stop eating meat or like stop eating vegetables or it's just IBS and you just have to deal with it. And so from like a young age in my teenage years, I was like, hey, this conventional route, this doesn't make any sense. And there has to be something better. And so I started getting so fascinated by holistic wellness and started caring a lot about like non-toxic products and all that kind of thing. And then it wasn't until I was a focus missionary after college that I fell back really, really hard into my disordered eating. I totally thought it was something that was just going to be like over. And it's not something that just goes away. I thought it was like healed and done. And it wasn't. And so I fell back really hard. And in the midst of that, I was like, man, like I know that this isn't what the Lord wants, but I'm struggling this way. And I also see a lot of my friends that are like super overwhelmed. It feels like we're all at war with our bodies. And this doesn't make sense. So I really had this literal come to Jesus moment of being in adoration one night on Leanne Bowen's ranch, sitting on the floor of her living room and being like, Lord, what do you want? Like, how do I live in freedom again? Because I'm a prisoner, like to my own body and to my own thoughts. And so really clearly he like laid out for me what he wanted for me. And then soon after that, I was like, hang on, like every Catholic woman deserves this. So went back to school and here we are.
Wow. I think that's so beautiful because it is, in this age of modern medicine, like so many things, I had a lot of struggles similar to yours, especially with menstrual things and going to doctors and them just throwing the birth control route at me or other things. Actually, my mom took me to someone who was going to put me on Lupron that was going to like completely, put me into menopause at age 15. So I know that route, and just that in this age, just going back to understanding our bodies and understanding that our systems aren't our enemy, that we can control. It's something that we have to live with, that God gave us, that we have to understand and have a relationship with. And fully, once I understand, like we practice natural family planning. And again, I wish I would have been told those things as a young adult or even young teenager to understand certain times of your cycle, your body is going to do different things. And those things are never taught to girls. It is kind of like a me versus my, like, and just even how our culture paints our period, right? Not that it is this beautiful and wonderful thing all the time, the curse, right? But it shouldn't be viewed as that. It should be, viewed as something that is a part of life. And it doesn't have to be as bad as maybe the different toxins that's in our food is bringing it out to be, or the different. Do you find that a lot of women are struggling more now with like hormonal imbalances?
Oh,
What
yeah.
do you contribute? Because that's what I'm seeing. And what do you contribute to that as a major factor?
Man, well, even just think about the past, what is it, 5-ish decades? PCOS is now like one of the leading reproductive disorders and one of the leading signs that we have of how much women are in crisis. Or if you think about, I'm forgetting her name right now, but the book Countdown, where they're like kind of predicting that in the next 50-ish years, our sperm count is going to hit 0. Like, obviously there's something wrong with our environment. Obviously the way that we are living is working completely against like the way that the Lord designed our bodies. And I do think it's a combination of multiple things. I think it's a combination of now we have multiple generations of women who do not understand how their body works and what it needs. The advent of birth control, I think, has been a massive disservice to women's health. And I think it's actually put women's health back decades because now it's being thrown as your only option and it's a band-aid and it's actually causing more trouble. I think that our modern society and the pace of our modern society and the amount of stress that women are under is causing a lot of imbalance. I think that our modern technology and like the advent of artificial lighting being something that is nonstop. It is constant. People really don't realize the way that your body is designed to function. You're designed to function with signals of light. You have a circadian rhythm. And then you add on top of that, like all the xenoestrogens that we have, all of the toxins in our food and our products. And I'm not someone that really focuses on like everything is toxic. And I know you can find those people in the holistic space. It's just not going to be me because I also need you to like be okay and like live.
Like real
but it is something.
Right.
Yeah, but it is something you have to be aware of, that it's like there's a lot that's working against us. So I think that's one of the most important things for especially Catholic women to understand is that like God isn't just punishing you and he didn't forget about you and he didn't design a really messy and chaotic system. It's actually just that our modern world and man has made a lot of choices that are not good. And so if you understand that, you can be empowered to work against it, but God's not the enemy and your body isn't the enemy here.
When clients come to, how many clients do you service? Like what, you know, how broad is your influence?
In the past few years, I think we've worked with over 200 women.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Go you. That's so great. That's so
Thank
great.
you.
What's your biggest game changer, do you think? When someone comes to you, it's like what do you think is a big game changer for most of them?
Understanding your circadian rhythm and your cycle. 100%. Those two things, I call them your feminine rhythms. So your cycle, you have this 28-ish day clock that your body runs off. And then your circadian rhythm is this 24-ish hour clock. And when you understand the cadence and this rhythm that your body has, a lot of women are living in like a constant state of like cacophony, right? It's like the conductor is like absent from the orchestra and every instrument is playing a different song and it sounds awful and it feels awful. And they're like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. And so when you kind of get back in there and you can be the conductor by sending the right signals of what should you be doing, body, at what time, what do you need in order to function optimally? So many things can be simplified. And that's like lifestyle alone. And that's before we even get into all the juice of testing and really pulling back the curtain. There's just so much that you can do. And there's so much that you are doing that's working against your body.
So do you recommend, like, because I've seen a lot of apps talk about this, that within different phases of your cycle, you should be eating and doing different things? Is that
I think you can. I will say, I think that that's a little bit more advanced than everyone needs to be doing. It's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever read the book, I Can Teach You to Be Rich, but it's this book about investment. And I think it has some of the most sound health advice ever, like an investment book, because he says, hey, when it comes to investments, so many people become like obsessed about like, but which stock index should I invest in and which housing market, He's like, they're getting into these advanced things. It's the same as someone, which is what we see a lot in our modern world, is people being like, well, should I do this version of keto? And should I get this supplement and when it's like your house has no foundation. Like you're so worried about the shingles and you're so concerned about these details and nuances, but like the house is already on fire because there's no system running it. So really, before we even get into like those specifics of switching for each phase of your cycle, you can, but I find that a lot of women are missing the essentials, the core blueprint to how to live in the feminine body every single day. So yes, I think it can be helpful for some people and it can be kind of fun. And there's things that I teach all of my clients that you should know about. Like you should know that you are a little bit more carb sensitive and a little less carb sensitive at the first half and second half of your cycle, stuff like that. But
I didn't know that. See?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So there's like, there's no way that you're going to like learn to nourish the feminine body without taking your cycle into account. But I do think sometimes people get a little bit caught up in some of it. Like, should I start cycle syncing the workouts, but they haven't been working out at all. So it's like, well, let's get into the habit of working out before we kind of like are shifting something every single week. Cause then it's a lot harder to be consistent. Right.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the same for diet too. And it's good to see that there are these trends now that make America healthy again. And it's good regardless of what political party you're in, but that people are talking about these things that are affecting fertility and the way that we live, because let's just face it, the food we've been eating for thousands and thousands of years isn't the same food that we're eating now. That, majority of our kids are eating 70% processed foods and we're eating usually what they're eating. And so just some basic things of taking a step back and eating food like your grandparents would eat, like fruits and vegetables and nuts and meats and whole foods that you can start in a very simple place before it's like keto or carnivore, all these things that's going on. Like try to get the junk that is junk. Like if you're drinking a ton of pop, don't be worrying about these other, like start with eliminating some things that are not good for you and try to maybe see how your body responds to it. It's like, I know for me, I had a back injury and I just felt I had a lot of inflammation in my body. So I'm like, look, I'm going to go extreme. Not that I could do it forever, but I did the carnivore for 6 weeks. And like my back got so much better. I'm like, well, I can't do this I love meat and eggs. And I did that a lot, but it really helped for me to get a lot of the inflammation.
It's like a restart.
Yeah. It was just like, but just eliminating some things and just being, this, not that kind of stuff. I like that approach where it's like, okay, well, we don't have to go so in depth, but like, if you're not doing these foundational type things, you don't got to, microscope into this little nuance of a thing. Like when we have so many other things that are that you're not doing. So what are some other things about like nutrition that's just things that we're overlooking, or something that you've seen in your practice that like, well, I never would have thought about that, or this person, whether that's a man or a woman, just things that you would help people with?
Yeah. Oh man. I'm glad you brought up carnivore. So I'm like everything that I teach, I'm like, I've done so many things, and I did carnivore for like well over a year, which I would not recommend to any woman, because it just is not optimal for the feminine body. And that's one thing that women need to understand, is that just because it worked for your husband or for your dad or for your brother doesn't mean it's going to be the same for you.
Sure.
Like, men are built different, women are built different. And that's one thing. But one thing that I did get out of carnivore, and that I am really grateful for, was understanding how essential animal protein is. And that's something that I think is underrated, or people kind of overcomplicate diet. But at the end of the day, you are designed to need muscle. Okay. It's the organ of longevity. It is critical to your hormone balance. It's critical to how you're going to live and what your life is going to look like when you're in your 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yes.
The more muscle you have on your body, the healthier you're going to be. It's just the name of the game. So that alone, this kind of protein-centric diet, can also help you filter out a lot of fads and trends that aren't going to work for you, or that aren't helpful long-term. Like, I get really, really concerned with veganism. I get really, really concerned with vegetarianism. And I'm someone who did a vegetarian diet also for a year in college, because I was told, stop eating red meat. That's what's causing your stomach aches. So sometimes even just being able to filter between so much of the noise of the wellness world, is you have to understand the objective truths. And I think a lot of that is also, like, I kind of joke that when I started rereading the Bible after carnivore and after vegetarianism and after Whole30 and after all these things that I had tried, I was like, hang on, there's like kind of a lot of wisdom in here. There's like a lot of keys here, that like, it can't be that I shouldn't eat any fruits or vegetables. And it can't be that I shouldn't eat any animals, because like, the Lord has given me everything to eat. So like, I just need to figure out what my body needs. It's what's going to make it feel its best. But I do think that that's like a huge nutrition key for women, is understanding that just because it worked for the men in your life doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And that also can like relieve a lot of frustration. I can't tell you how many women are like, oh, my husband or my dad loses 15 pounds in just like a month of doing something, and I do it harder than him and it doesn't work. And it's like, well, yeah, your body isn't built that way. And like, the feminine body needs safety. That's what it needs to, it is looking for signals of safety, especially in your reproductive years. It is looking for signs that it is okay to reproduce. Because when you are like bringing another child into the universe, and also when you are putting yourself in a state of pregnancy, it's a very vulnerable state. If we were like living out in the wild again, like, you got real slow, you've gotten really vulnerable. Like, there's a lot of factors to that pregnancy, on top of needing to give so much to that baby in the womb. So I think understanding the difference between men and women, and then also protein. And it doesn't have to be going full carnivore, but if you are serious about seeing change in your body composition, about restoring your hormones, about helping your blood sugar, which is really important for women in general, and also a lot of women with PCOS need to prioritize that. If you have a family history or a concern, and you have seen people that you love go through dementia and Alzheimer's, like, your protein and your muscle health has to be a massive priority. Which I know it is for you, because I got to meet you at Seek. I know.
It's just, it's, for me, it's like, I know two examples of, like, I'll hear that from guys. I work out at work, and guys like, well, like, muscle, girls don't always just want big muscles. I'm like, it's not that. Like, I've been married almost 15 years. It is literally two guys that I know. One right now is in the hospital, who is a lot bigger than me, and he had this rare infection, and the muscles are literally, he was like in a coma. His muscles were literally feeding his body while he was down. And another man who I know, who's since passed, but he survived another 3 years with a serious cancer, that he had big muscles too. And the doctor said if he didn't have those muscles, he would have been dead. Like, we don't understand that the muscle is stored with amino acids and vitamins, and that they're not just, yes, they're functional and they help burn more calories the more muscle you have, but it's literally, as you get older, like you were alluding to, is that what usually happens with older people, their legs give out, then they fall. Like, all these other things. A lot of times it isn't that they fall. Sometimes that they break a bone and then they fall, but they don't know which one came first. So it's like, in strength, your grip and all these things as we get older, is like that protein is going to help. Like, women always, are afraid that if they eat a bunch of protein, they're going to gain muscle. I'm like, well, that's not how it works. It's like testosterone and all these other things that go in it. But just because you eat a high protein diet doesn't mean you're going to gain muscle and be bulky like a man. I think there's a big misconception about that, but most people are really low on protein and super high on ultra processed carbs that are just junk. And so if you're worried about eating too much protein, I guarantee you're not even close to what you should be taking in, but more than likely you're eating too many noodles, too many chips, too many.
I'm a noodle. I like noodles.
Yeah. And she's been having issues. So that's part of what, like, she was, considering just trying to eliminate a lot of the noodles and those things just for to do
I
an
honestly
elimination.
was going to try carnivore just for the month of February because it's the shortest month, just to kind of reset my system and look into something, then kind of like how you do like an elimination diet, and then you slowly bring back things and notice how your body feels when you eat that thing, to kind of pinpoint maybe what it is that's disrupting me or just, or affecting me. Is that anything that you would recommend? Like, I know that's a very hardcore thing to do. Yeah. We decided we were going to try it maybe for Lent. I'm still like what I want to do yet, just because of I just want something that's functional. I practice intermittent fasting. I've been practicing intermittent fasting for, oh my goodness, 4 years. I think about 4 or 5 years now. I love it. It's been that is a whole lifestyle for me, but I have a small window during the week, and then the weekends I open it. Again, it's intermittent. I'll change it up, but making sure I have the right amount of nutrients in that small amount of window is very important to me too. So I guess I just want to do what's right, and I want to do what's right for my body. And you talk about stress. I'm a principal of a Catholic grade school, and it's within these last few years. I think I've been doing intermittent fasting way longer than 4 years. I'd say 5 or 6, because I've been a principal now for this my 4th year.
Yeah. And
it's been an extremely stressful job. I've had the actual toll that it has taken on my body. I'm about to get emotional. I really can't explain the fight or flight that I've been in for the last 3 years. Like, I'm finally getting out of in this year 4, but that fight or flight I know did major damage to my body. And so like, I'm on this healing journey to try to get myself back to where I was when I started, because I think I really think I'm on another side of, like I said, some major damage there. So I'm trying a restart, right? Like something to kind of give me a ground zero to build off of. And I just don't know if that's, I don't mean to turn this into my own personal therapy session.
Oh, I love it.
But it's an example of, I think that a lot of women do feel like they get extreme amount of stress. You have so much going on, trying to juggle all the things that we try to juggle, that you don't really realize it until you really get some kind of red flag happening. You're like, oh, I can't live like this. Yeah. Right. And so sometimes you need like a hard reset, right? I want to be like, Control Alt Delete, restart this body over. Right. How can I do this?
Yeah.
So does that make sense? Like,
100%. 100%.
Something that's smart or could add more stress? I don't know.
I'm so glad you asked this. You know what's hilarious? I have a post that is scheduled to come out right now while we're talking about this. That is my literal opinion on this. So Holy Spirit knew that we were going to talk about this today. First of all, I just want to say that what you do as a principal is extraordinary. I don't think I realized how much you carry and how much is on your shoulders until my husband started working at a Catholic school, and I have a couple friends that work at Catholic schools. Like, yeah, the amount of pressure that is on you 365 days of the year is a lot. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for taking that role. And I know how much you must love these kids and these teachers to sustain it for this long. Yeah. And here's just I want to offer a question back. When you think about, I'm going to get a little dramatic here. I want you to think about a little girl. Okay. Or the kids that you see that come into your office. And you probably have this principle of I have to connect with them before I can correct them. They're right. That they're not going to be able to take any input if they're completely dysregulated and sobbing or angry or terrified in my office. Right. You so you could be hey, I need to bring down the hammer on this kid because what he did was so wrong. But if we don't have a moment of connection first, nothing that I do is going to help.
Yeah.
So my concern, and I have been there, I'm telling you, I did carnivore, I did 1 meal a day, and it all triggered after I spent a whole month eating at a dining hall for, our missionary training. I was at University of Mary, and I was like, "Oh," like I gained 10 pounds. I felt so puffy. Everything was like cooked in canola, and I was like, "Ugh, I need a reset."
Yeah.
The thing is, like, there may be a better way to help bring your body back into safety, which is what we need when you're expressing, especially your example is so clear of, I know that there has been massive stress. Some women, they're like, I don't really know what happened, but over the past 3 years, like I feel like a different person. But you're like, no.
I've been pinpoint it and chewed up and spit out. And now I know I need a like really, really.
Katie, that just breaks my heart.
Yeah.
But like, that's like really intense, and that's probably really accurate language. So is the approach of something that is going to be super intense. You said it's a hard reset, it's intense. You're stripping away so many things from your diet. It's mentally quite challenging, and like you feel good in the beginning of it. I mean, you can probably agree to it. Like you by like week 2.5, week 3, you're like, "Ooh, I got in a groove," but like it is mentally challenging. I just wonder, and I would offer that, like, if your body has been under that much stress, is there a gentler way that we can bring it back into balance? Is there a way that we can do it in a way that's actually really compassionate and loving and helps your body soften again? Because for the feminine body, like, there's this softness in us that we really need. And when I say safety, I mean this, like, gosh, kind of like the way that you probably feel like with your husband when it's just like you two at the end of the night and you're like, I'm okay. Like he takes care of everything.
all yeah.
Like the feminine body and the feminine heart.
Yeah.
She needs softness and she needs safety. And so, like, instead of a hard reset, instead I always look for, especially when someone has been under that much stress, it's like, all right, where can we like show your body peace? Where can we show it that like everything's okay? Where can we add in more joy? And at this point, if you have been that taxed, you're probably really, really depleted. So we need to be really strategic about adding way more into your diet, way more nutrients, way more variety to kind of replenish as fast as it's been depleted. So this is also where I think testing is really helpful, because it kind of takes you away from having to go to an extreme, and instead you cut out all the guesswork and we get to jump straight into, what is your body asking for? What does Katie's body need to feel safe and to start functioning again? And especially, you kind of mentioned there's certain symptoms that you're seeing that you're like, oh goodness gracious, like I don't feel right anymore.
Right.
And like kind of tying those symptoms with what your testing is showing means that you can have a really tailored approach that will fast track you and kind of cuts out the need to jump to an extreme like carnivore, which I'm not saying that there isn't some times and places. I do think it can be therapeutic, especially if someone is under massive gut symptoms. Like if they are under massive GI distress, something like an elimination diet can be helpful. But if it's something more along the lines of like, my body is majorly stressed, my nervous system is shot, and I need a reset, I think there's a faster way to it. What do you think?
No, I agree. I think what I really liked when I first started intermittent fasting is when you would break a fast, your body would tell you what, like I wouldn't crave junk. I knew what I needed. It would tell me what I needed, but that was when I was not under that much stress. Now it's just like I don't have, I can't, I'm out of sync. I'm out of whack. So that is, for sure. Something that makes sense to me.
Well, I think too, though, also that there are other issues than the stress. She is still having menstrual problems. She still always has gut issue type stuff. So she has all these kind of things. So that's what I was always was worrying, is like, because could be, the carbs could be a lot because she loves noodles, and it's just like, and I get it, but it's like, but other than that, we make all our own, we eat pretty clean. I mean, we don't eat out, but we'll make a lot of soups and some pastas and stuff like that. But for me, I was just wondering, like, how much, because, you watch too many stuff, we're in the information age. So there's so much information. With some people's like, well, the things that they're spraying all our carbs with folic acid, and maybe her body's not being able to break those kinds of things down. I'm like, it's just to see, hey, okay, how do I feel after a couple of weeks of eliminating these things? Or maybe it's this, dairy, or maybe it's, just trying to get a gauge, but why not stressing it too much. But she's also, she started the Exodus 90 for women, which is Mag 90. This is her 4th year. So she's also, she's in a pretty extreme, no drinking. She's adding in those peaceful times in the prayer. And so that's just kind of goes hand in hand, like kind of more the extreme thing. But I hear what you're saying. Like me, I'm like extreme all the time. I did the 75 hard. I'm an extreme person.
He's an extreme person. I am not. And yeah, I think that just speaks truth to I just need to discern and think about what is going to be the best way for me to get back to my old self and then improve upon that from there.
But we also, every 6 months, we get a quarter cow. So like we have good beef.
Yeah.
We get a quarter cow. So like last night we had a roast and, so we do have a lot of meat already. It's just like I said, it's just the carbs I know that we buy, like they're not, I can just tell when I have them, like, oh, it just feels so gross afterwards, And, I watched, the Casey and Callie Means, and they're talking about it, and the Gary Breckers of the world. And these people, like, a lot of our carbs aren't like, I always hear from everyone who goes to Europe. They're like, went to Europe, I ate all the pasta I won. I came back and I lost weight. I feel good. It's like my body doesn't feel the same. And I feel like that after I eat like
certain German noodles I found don't have the stuff on them. So I just need to make sure I shop in our local European stores. That's all.
Yeah.
Local European. I will say part of also why I'm so, I think you can hear in the way that I'm speaking, I kind of have a lot of caution and a lot of tenderness around it too, because the reality is so many intense diets can lead to disordered eating, and it can lead to eating disorders. And I think it's something that's not talked about enough, and that we can, I was very flippant about doing Whole30 and carnivore. I was very like, I just got to do it. Like I at no point took into account my relationship with food or what that was going to do to my brain to be that restrictive as someone who already had a history of doing that.
Right.
Or even what I was modeling to the younger women around me. So I'm always like, the answer I will always give will always be in the direction of like, hey, can we be as moderate as possible? Can we like point you into the middle? Can we keep you in the middle so that one, you're not stressing your body out more and you're getting results faster, but two, like we keep your mental peace. And because I think men have an easier time. And of course men do struggle with disordered eating, eat disorders, but I think there's something so cut and dry for men sometimes with dieting that it's just not the same for women. So that's part of why my answer is so like, can we test and can we like slow things down? And also really, really, if anyone's listening and they're in the same boat as Katie, like do it with trusting eyes, like do it with professional eyes on you so that you, one, are like doing things as quickly as possible, but two, there's someone there that can be like, hey, like we're going too far in one direction or not far enough in the other, so that you kind of aren't off in the deep end by yourself.
And I think that your way also speaks to, if you look at the whole big picture, your approach is more realistic, right? So it's more sustainable.
Yeah, because the goal, because like here's the thing, you can do carnivore and feel great for a month.
But then this is that what you do is what you go back to your old habits as soon as you're done, right? It's more of a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that can cause more stress, the yo-yoing up and down.
And like the guilt and the shame of doing it, losing 30 pounds, and then you get off of it because you can't keep it up because like you can't go to people's houses and you like can't.
I'm only gonna have the burgers. Can I have 4 burgers, please?
No bun, please.
So how do you tie faith into all of this? How do you make it Catholic?
I love it. Well, there's like varying degrees. One, because people will ask me, and I have other entrepreneurs that they'll be like, I'm a Christian, but I don't like lead with a faith-based business. How did you decide to do that? And kind of this implication of like, are you cutting off a lot of your market by doing this? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe. But like, I also have so many clients because Catholic women want to work with Catholic women. So one thing is just like, I knew that I couldn't do this without being able to freely be like, and Jesus and the Lord and Mary, like, and have you prayed about this? You know, so part of it is for me to be able to be like fully transparent and fully myself. But also I do think that as Catholic women, we have a certain language that we speak that's really, really different from anyone else's. You know, like I can talk to you about the feminine and the masculine, and you might have some like theology of the body principles that are immediately like turned on in your brain.
Yeah.
I can talk about like the dignity of your body, and we can talk about the fact that like as women, you spend a lot of your life in preconception or in postpartum replenishment, because so many women care about their fertility. So many Catholic women care about their fertility and like that gift in their marriage. We can talk about like birth control being not optimal for you from a health reason, but also from like a, hey, well, you're gonna get married and you're gonna have to get off eventually anyway. So like we have to find a solution here for your hormones. So it just brings a lot of freedom there. And then also there's certain principles that I think like really faithful Catholic women are already really solid in. For example, the understanding of what like a healthy prayer life should look like. Have you guys ever looked at the little booklet of Norms of Piety? I think it's published by, okay. So there's this like great, it's like a free booklet. But the Norms of Piety being like morning prayer, adoration, daily mass, the rosary, right? All these different things.
Yeah.
And in the book, they have this example of, or this analogy of telephone wires, right? So when it comes to building out our prayer life as lay people, I think especially when we're like in the middle of our conversion, we're so fervent, we're like, I'm going to do it all. And like, I'm going to pray every moment of the day.
That's extreme.
I'm super extreme in everything, including all of those things.
Yes.
So that's even a good point of like how you behave in your spiritual life always will reflect in the way that you take care of your body. And so if you're someone that you're like, man, I do have the tendency to go like way above and beyond, I have to reel myself in. Or if you're like, I have a tendency towards slothfulness and I have to like learn how to push myself, it's good to know yourself. But so he gives this analogy of these telephone wires. And like when we build out our prayer life, we want to make sure that they're not so close together that they snap, right? I can't, as a layperson, I cannot expect myself to do morning prayer and then the Angelus and then mass and then a holy hour and then a rosary, right? And like all of my hours of the day, it's just not the season that the Lord has called me to. Right. But it's also probably not good for me only to go to mass once a week. And then that's the only encounter I have with God. So learning how to space it out in a way that like those telephone wires stay in a good place, not too close, not too far. And it's kind of the same thing when it comes to your habits. So kind of, I like to help stack some of these analogies for women of the things that you're already really, really good at. Like I get that your body feels super overwhelming or health feels so confusing, or like you've done so many things that now you're kind of twisted upside down. You don't know what's right and what's wrong. But when you can kind of match things up with the things that do make sense, and so many women are like on guard. You know, like by the time they come to me, I am not the first person. I'm not their first rodeo. And they have already tried a lot of things, or they've been burned by other providers, or they just like don't know who to believe. And they're like on defense.
Yeah.
And so really understanding that it's like, hey, let's look for things in terms of biblical truths, and let's look for like the objective truths of, yes, every single body has nuance. Like what works for you might not work for me, and our bodies might need different things at this time, but there are objective principles here that we can ride off of that just bring a lot of peace and a lot of freedom.
That's awesome.
I love it.
That's beautiful.
I love what you're doing.
Well, it's because there isn't a whole lot of that out there. The names of the people that I mentioned, some of them are Christian, but like they definitely don't lead with that, and they definitely don't have the same language. Like you're talking to us, it's like
we're like,
we study theology of the body, and like, and that's the beauty about our bodies.
It puts it all together, because we are more than just our bodies, and we are more than just our souls. We are a soul and a body, and having those, your mind, that is holistic, right? That's your whole self, your mind, your body, and your soul, and to put those all together and how that works, because they all affect each other. So if you just went to a nutritionist that didn't have that spiritual background, and a spiritual counselor, and maybe a therapist, but to have all those things kind of wound up together, because they do affect each other, than to have them as isolated things, because they all do. Stress takes such an amazing toll. I never realized how much stress really does affect every aspect of, like, physically, your emotionally, your mental load, everything. It's crazy. I never knew that, so to have something that it puts it all together, because the ultimate designer that designed our bodies this way, I don't think wanted us to compartmentalize all these different aspects of it either, right? It all does tie together. So it's such a beautiful thing that you're doing. I think it's so needed, especially right now. And so I think it makes sense to me why so many Catholic women would seek this out, because we do. You're right. We want someone that just speaks our language. We don't want to, like, I was sitting in my doctor's office just 2 weeks ago, and, we were trying to figure out a solution to a problem that I have. And he's like, well, we could do hormonal therapy, which is, I'm like, well, what is that? He's like, well, that's putting you on birth control for a few months. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing, like, it's just like the fact that I even like, okay, I don't know about this guy, like we're not on the same wavelength, right?
Yeah.
You don't
Or like,
would not be an option for me, sir. Like, so just, it just really is. It is so needed, especially in our culture. Just the more and more that our culture strays away from these truths, it's nice to have that niche, So
Well, and it's good too that the culture is now coming aboard. They're not even Catholic about how birth control isn't good for your body in general, not just theologically and what we believe as a church, but we're starting to see these trends going this other way. And I guess my next question, which I just kind of just to hammer home, I know you're a nutritionist, but the other part is moving and movement. And that's not just working out, but all these new studies are coming out just about obviously just walking. I just read a new study that I've been trying to get her, and guys at work have been laughing at me that they said that it's better when you than a 30-minute walk is doing 10 body squats, like an hour, like every hour do 10 body squats. Like everyone's like, well, I got no time to work out. I'm like, okay, well, every time you get out of the truck, drop down and give me 10 squats. So I've been doing that. Like, and the guys are looking at me, they look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, but that's, they say sitting is the new smoking. It's like it's such a big thing, that movement, like all these things are interconnected, our body and our soul, but our diet and how we move and or not move is really affecting, especially with me. I know that's why I got really into working out, was because of the stress for me. That's how I relieve my stress. And I'm aggressive and I'm a man, and I'm like, like today I'm lifting heavy weights and I'm like, like I just like a primal thing that I like. For guys, that's how we get a lot of that stress out and that built up aggression.
Stretching. I feel like 20 million that's the beauty times part. Better when I stretch.
But the movement in general, whatever that is, if that's stretching or Pilates or I've been doing a lot of like saunas, like those things help me like fall asleep and make my body relax, and it does stress my body. So doing like this thing of like a lot of people are talking about, especially going into Lent, of voluntarily creating stress. We're so comfortable in our lives that we are doing cold plunges or doing saunas or doing things because we live such a comfortable life, and the thermostat and the artificial lights, there's all these things, like we have to find ways to put ourselves in. I heard that aging is that pursuit after comfort. Like we're so wanting to just be comfortable 24/7 instead of trying to have some stress. But if it's obviously overwhelming you, that's different. But far as like, well, my whole day is sitting in front of a computer screen. I jump in my car, I come out, I go home, and I sit on the couch and watch TV. Like you're not doing enough to help your body do what it's supposed to do. So do you recommend a lot of like movement, or especially for women, what are some things that you suggest to them? Like, how many times a week, or like what kind of things have you seen work for other people?
Yeah. Oh, goodness. I think the three main categories are going to be walking, strength training, and mobility. Walking is essential. Also for your mind, like to be outside, not just for the sunlight, but like to just like get to like take in the sights and listen to birds and all those kinds of things for regulating your nervous system. And it's critical. So walking, and I intentionally am separating that from like other forms of exercise, because I want you to walk because you can. Like, I want you to be so grateful that your body can do that, that we stop always seeing exercise as like, will this help me lose weight? Will this get me X result? Like, and always about what we get out of it. But sometimes it's just being like, man, like, thank you, Jesus. Thank you that my legs work. Thank you that I can do this. If you are able to walk, I think you need to be walking every single day. And outside, if possible. And strength training, again, kind of back to that muscle thing, which I made a comment about, like, if you want to reduce your chances of, or if you have family members that have struggled with dementia and Alzheimer's, and you're like, wait, what does that have to do with muscle? If you haven't heard, Alzheimer's is now being called type 3 diabetes.
Yeah.
So being really aware that your blood sugar, your insulin, and your muscle health are all also going to affect your brain health. So if you're someone that wants to recognize your loved ones in your 80s, you having more muscle on you is really important. And the same thing too that you were saying about like falling and all those different risks. But also like presently, because you might be 20 years old listening to this and you're like, I can't even think about my 80s. Like, I just think about how I'm going to look in my dress on my date on Valentine's Day, like whatever it may be. Then also just for the hormone support, and then mobility of just like really making sure that we're keeping our bodies limber, and that you are, because sometimes Oh, I don't know. Did you guys ever watch the show Beastmaster?
Oh yeah.
No.
Okay. Did you
Beastmaster?
on Netflix that it was kind of like American Ninja Warrior type
Oh no,
competition?
I'm going back to the 80s. There was a movie called Beastmaster where the guy had two ferrets saved his life.
Yeah, I don't think that's what
it's really fun to watch, but kind of one of those like physical competitions of this really challenging obstacle course. And what I always thought was so interesting is you would have like power lifters, crossfitters, runners, like so many different types of athletes, and without fail, if there was a climber in the competition, he was going to win. They like didn't look ripped. They didn't look very strong, honestly, but every single time they won. And a lot of times, no offense to CrossFitters, this is not me saying anything. It's just an observation, but the CrossFitters like weren't getting very far. And I would almost notice this like shortness in their movements and in their capacity. Like their muscles were huge, but the like kind of agility and the functional movement wasn't quite there. So I think making sure that you're keeping that functional movement and that mobility and the agility, especially just for your joint health as you get older. I think a lot about getting older now just because I like watched my family, and it's so important to have that perspective. And that also kind of comes back to like being a good steward and honoring your body. And people, I think Catholic women sometimes have this fear of like, oh, if I take care of my health, it's going to become an idol. But you not taking care of yourself is selfish. Like you taking care of yourself is one of the most generous things that you can do for your vocation, for your children, for your loved ones, for whatever mission you're on that you're so proud of. Like you have to understand how your body works and learn how to take care of it. And so if it's like from the movement perspective, that walking, the strength training and the mobility of like getting on the floor and making sure that things are stretched out really well and that you're doing different mobility exercises, that you're working on your hips and your hip flexors and your ankles and your knees, is just going to kind of really round out what your body is able to do now and for decades.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I used to be a trainer, so that's what I would always talk about it as like a car. Like you have four tires and your heart is like the engine, but you have your nutrition and your flexibility, your agility and your strength training. Like if you have one flat tire, it's like the car doesn't want to move. But mine is always stretching. I'm so tight because I've always had back issues and tight hamstrings. So it's like the more, but as I studied more and more, it's like, yeah, I can stretch, but if I'm not strengthening, it'll snap right back. I can stretch all day, but if I'm not like loading the right spots or my lower back or my hips or my hamstrings, then I get, that's weak and it's compensating. So I'm trying to do it all. It's like, okay, but progress, not perfection. And that's what we're working towards and trying. So hopefully from this conversation that you're getting that be easy on yourself. It's hard enough out there. Yes, there's times
it's hard enough out there.
It is. It's the world is, from everything that we eat now, it's like you got to be like, that's plastic and this thing, and I'm cooking in Teflon and like water bottles, and it's like there's so many things that but it could be overwhelming. It's like, no, now I got to worry about the lights and I got to run and I got to do this, and it's like the chemicals in my food and the Monsanto and this, and it's like it could be overwhelming, and it should be alarming to us because, like you said, we're going to get older and we want a higher quality of life. We want to be here. We want to be here mentally, physically. We want to be here longer. We want to, not be, for somebody who had back surgery, was in pain for 8 months. Like pain is like, you don't want to live your life like that because, the joy is hard to be there when you're in pain.
This one doctor I follow on Instagram, he's more holistic, and he says basically, I'm probably butchering this, but choose your hard. So like it's hard to get up and go to the gym. It's hard to eat right. It's hard to make these right choices, but it is also hard to have that knee surgery, to be a diabetic, to, be this many pounds overweight and have to deal with that. Choose your hard, right?
Yeah.
So
and choose your cost. What are you willing to pay? Because so many people, it's expensive to eat well, or it's expensive to like work with a nutritionist. But it's like, it's also really expensive to be on medication for the last 30 years of your life.
Right.
It's really expensive to have to like pay for surgery, and it's have to pay for different care. Like choose what cost you're willing to pay.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know the difference between price and cost. They're like, yes, the price, but over the long run, that cost is what it is. Yeah, you may get a 99-cent cheeseburger, but at the end of your life, like you could have went and had whatever better choices. It's like, yes, it's not always just the front end cost. There's so much on the back end that you're hitting on for sure. What else? Do you have anything else? I don't want to keep it too long. We're already over 50 minutes already.
How can people find you? How can people connect with you? Give us all your info.
Yes. So you can find me at The Catholic Nutritionist on Instagram or my website, thecatholicnutritionist.com. I also have a podcast on Spotify and Apple called the Made Good podcast. You just look Made Good, you'll see it there. And then if kind of some of the things that I touched on, I have a new course coming out on Catholic perspective on food freedom. And then I have a new course on cycle tracking. If you're like, oh my gosh, my cycle is important. So that will come out soon. And then our signature way of working with women is really laying out everything that I mentioned and more in this podcast in a way that's easy for you to understand and for you to actually implement so that you can make changes that last.
Realistic.
And getting
It's
some
like
of
a
that
lot of
testing that we
one-on-one
talked about.
coaching. You do that, like that's like the first step is like an interview, talk to them, and then go from there. It's not like, hey, here's something I'm going to send to you, but you do a lot of hands-on coaching.
Yeah. So it's really a combination of you. It's kind of a hybrid of you going off and learning on your own, and then also us making sure that we're customizing to you and to your goals. Because those principles, you need to learn them no matter what, but then also we need to figure out what your body needs so that we can move the needle faster.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much for taking all the time and
so
educating, especially the men that are listening. We hear some perspective of what our women go through and vice versa.
Be
Because
gentle with us.
Be gentle. She doesn't need to go on the same extreme diet that you do.
yes,
You heard it here, folks.
You heard it here first.
I'm
I'm a maniac. I'm sorry. Well, she don't let her fool you. She's pretty tough over here.
I can tell.
Yes, she's very tough.
I'm tired.
Well, thank you so much. She is. She's like, after this, do I have anything else to do? I'm like, yeah, we got to make a couple reels. Don't worry.
Go to sleep.
We got to make a couple reels and then we'll be good.
Then
Okay.
we're good.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was such a fun conversation.
Well,
Yes,
thank you so much. We really appreciate it because I really believe in so much of it. That's why, it's easy to have a conversation when you believe that people need to hear this. It's like, it's not like I've had plenty of interviews. I'm like, okay, you got a book. That's great. But no, this is like, because most people,
they're not listening.
Well, most people don't read
No,
books.
I'm kidding.
Unfortunately, most people buy a book or get a book. They just don't read it. I do. I read tons of books, but a lot of people they'll get a book. They just don't read it. But this is practical stuff that can help inspire people to see, that their body is made perfectly and that it's not a fight within your body. We have to work with our bodies and work
be at war with any part of any system, really, right? So don't listen to the culture's lie that we have to be at war with our fertility or at war with our reproductive system as a whole or any body part. Really, it's us. It's part of us.
Amen.
So,
it's not a burden.
Amen. Well, we'll finish with a prayer in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Come, Holy Spirit. Glory be to the Father and to the Son and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.